Let me hear you cry. Oh, thank you for joining me another episode of Beating Cancer Today, the podcast where hope meets action. I'm your host, Kevin Hennings, a stage 4 colorectal cancer survivor. Against all odds, I defied the doctor's predictions and took my health into my own hands. Now, I'm here to share my journey and alternative methods that helped me. But it's not just about my story. It's about yours too. Join me as we navigate through the challenges of cancer together, providing support, insights, and empowerment. Together, we'll beat cancer, one episode at a time. Let me hear your war cry. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Warrior Wednesday. Thank you. You guys continue to have a dialogue on social media platforms, sharing these videos. Please remember to share, subscribe, like. Also, I think we're pretty much on every social media platform right now under Beating Cancer Today. There's a lot of them. We just got on Brighteon.com, Rumble. We actually are promoting a website that is currently under construction is beatingcancertoday.com, which we are going to have all of our video streaming from that platform as well. And you'll be able to see all of the clinical information and documentation that we use to support the information that we spew out in our podcast. So beatingcancertoday.com is up and coming. So, but we'll just stay tuned for that stuff because we'll be blasting it out on social media anyway. But at this point, we're pretty much on every social media outlet, I think, but we do get censored quite a bit because we talk about sensitive topics that are in the medical field, global infectious stuff. I don't even want to say the words because it will get yanked again. But we have a great guest today who's currently going through it. This guy is actually going through it, and he's currently in the battle, but he's thriving, and he's here to tell you how he's doing it. But he's going to get us started. But the all-time disclaimer before anything else, I'm not a doctor. Nobody's a doctor here. I'm just a United States Marine. And I was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. And after 3 years of Western medicine treatment, I had exhausted all efforts. And I was referred to hospice, actually. So that narrative didn't fit well with me. And I didn't like the narrative. So I did something to change the narrative so I could control the outcome. And that's, that's kind of what the message is here that we're doing. So I'm not a doctor. And when I got sent home, the only option I had was to either fight or just lay down. And I opted to fight because I don't really know quit. Right. So, I found a solution in repurposed medicine. I scoured the internet. I came up with clinical evidence and clinical documentation that was published by the same doctors in the same system that were feeding me the Western medicine stuff that wasn't working. So I found a solution in repurposed medicine. The documented stuff, the best cocktail that I could think of to put together at the time was comprised of 5 different ingredients. And come to find out, there's a lot of solutions out there. This is not the end all be all. In fact, for crossing the blood-brain barrier, there's other options. I mean, there's so many solutions out there that Western medicine is very well aware of, but they're not utilizing the options. So, but anyway, the ingredients that I comprise, I limited to 5 different ingredients just because I'm kind of a all over the map sometimes. And my 5 ingredients was fenbendazole, cimetidine, which is the active ingredient, and Tagamet, if you're familiar with that, AHCC, active hexose correlated compound, and a collection of mushrooms. Curcumin, which is anybody with cancer probably is familiar with the anti-inflammatory curcumin, and annatto, which is the only good part of, I don't want to say the only good part, but the most valuable part for the purpose of this cocktail of vitamin E. So it only takes the good parts of vitamin E that we want. and this way you don't get cluttered up with all the other stuff. So fenbendazole, cimetidine, AHCC, curcumin, and annatto, the 5 ingredients that were included in my cancer cocktail that I call it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me. He's grinding through stage 4 colon cancer, folks. He's juggling a heavy load as the director of business development, which I don't even know what that is. You can explain it. He's Phil Decker, folks. Hey, Phil, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks a lot for having me, Kevin. I like your energy, my kind of people.
That was a big introduction, but I try to get the energy flowing. What's going on? I'm not, you know what? You have such a great story, but it sounds a whole lot better coming from you. I can you just kind of introduce yourself to the audience? And there's so many people that are currently grinding and going through it right now that I kind of feel like your story is so applicable right now.
So my story began in October of 2021. I'm not before this. I'm 48 now. Before this, I had never. I mean, sick days were non-existent for me. I was an athlete my whole life. My first job out of college, I worked on a hotshot crew. I fought fires, wildland fires, all through college. I was a very active person. I was competitive. So I was feeling pretty good. I went in for my physical October 2021. I go in to see my primary doctor. She's a good friend of mine. Usually we really just sit in there and BS for 10 or 15 minutes and just kind of get caught up. And she said at the time, she's never told me to do anything, and she said, "Hey, Phil," she's like, "they just changed the colonoscopy age from 50 to 45 3 months ago." And she's like, "You're 46 now." She's like, "So, you need to get one." And I thought, oh, well, okay, sure. I'm like, why not 50? I mean, I'm completely healthy. You got my blood work. It looks great. And she's like, "No, I really need you to get one. There's a good reason that they changed it." So I kind of walked out of there and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to find a way to get out of this. I mean, I don't really want to do it. I'll go get one when I'm 50. Right. So she actually called the surgery center, and they called me and they made an appointment for me for January 5th of 2022. And in the meantime, just to give you an idea how good I was feeling at the time, I had qualified for the Boston Marathon 2019, COVID, yada, yada, all that good stuff. They had pushed it back to the fall of 2021. So I went out, I ran the Boston Marathon fall 2021, had a great time. Didn't really run as good as I wanted to. Everyone kind of said to enjoy your first Boston. I did. I went to a playoff game at Fenway the night before, and I walked all around Boston. So I didn't, I just took it all in, and maybe that's not the best thing to do before a marathon. So I came back and I said I had qualified to run Boston again in April of 2022. I got it. I said, "Hey, I'm going to get a little bit more serious about this." I went out and got a coach. We did a really aggressive speed training to get ready for our next marathon session that would begin in January. I felt great. I ran a 18:30 5K, which would put me in position that you kind of run a 5K before a marathon to see where you're at in shape wise. And when I did that, our goal was to run a sub-3 at Boston, and I felt very confident that I could make that happen. And then the story kind of gets a little bit interesting. So I go in for my colonoscopy January 5th. I live in Iowa. It was a cold, about 10 degrees and 21-hour wind, and that's kind of what we have in January in Iowa. And it wasn't the prettiest day. I go in and get my colonoscopy, and I come out of recovery, and the surgeon starts asking me a lot of questions. Have you had any symptoms like blood in your stool, hemorrhoids, everything under the sun? And at that time, I was still pretty in the bag, and I just didn't understand what he was saying. And then they said, "Hey, we need you to go across to get some blood work done, and we're going to have you meet with this counselor." And I've been in sales my whole life, so my antenna started going off, and there's some red flags there, and I'm like, what's kind of going on here? And we go get the blood work, and then I sit down with a care counselor in a cancer center. And I didn't even know who I was meeting with. And she's became a really good friend throughout this process. But at the time, I didn't know her from Adam, and she started, going through this thing, and she tells me I'm going to be a survivor tomorrow after we get our biopsy back, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like,
Oh,
and I said, well,
the
this
pep
is
the pep talks already
yeah,
started.
right. This isn't good, right? This is
Those
not going
those are
away.
pre-pep talks is what those
Yeah,
are.
when I walked in, and so they had done a biopsy. They had found a 5 centimeter colon, or a 5 centimeter tumor in my colon, and then through discovery in the next couple of weeks, the MRIs and the CT and all that good stuff. I had seven Mets on my liver, and most of them were over a centimeter. So they're pretty good size, anywhere from a half a centimeter to a full centimeter, all the way up to 2 centimeters. So I had some issues right off the bat. But the strange thing was I still felt great. I mean, I didn't feel bad at all, which was really strange to me that, they're telling me that I have stage 4 cancer. And, I go in and I talk to the oncologist, and, he gives me the speech, and, he says, well, in 2 years, 50% of people in your position are still alive. And within 5 years, only 15% of them are alive. And I kind of looked at him like, well, I'm not normal. So we could just throw that out the window. And, that was kind of, I took about 5 minutes. I went out to the waiting room with my wife, and I said, can you believe what this guy's saying? It's one of those moments, right? You've had that moment. We've all had that moment. And, I took about 5 or 10 minutes, and I just decided at that time, I'm like, well, I'm going to do this like I've done everything else in my life. I'm going to attack it. I'm going to fight it. And I'm going to stay as positive as I possibly can. They sent me up to the Mayo Clinic, which is the closest major cancer center to us, which is an absolute godsend. I got to Mayo. I have a doctor there, Dr. Jen, who's absolutely wonderful. And, the first thing he told me was this is survivable. He started going through the treatment plan, and I'm going through the treatment plan, and he's like, we're going to do 5 rounds of chemo, and then we're going to run scans, and we're going to see where we're at, and then we're going to determine if we have surgery. And I'm looking at that, and lo and behold, if you looked at the timeline, that goes to about April 1st, and the Boston Marathon was being run April 18th. And I looked at him and I said, hey, I've qualified for the Boston Marathon. I already got my ticket. Is there any reason why that I can't do this? And my liver surgeon at the time had run about 20 marathons, and he was in the room, and he said, yeah, there's no reason that you can't do this. And my oncologist said, yeah, well, just look at it and see how it goes. And, that kind of gave me something to look forward to. I felt great, and I thought, well, I'll see how it goes, and I'm going to keep running. And I'm going to keep doing everything that I can to make this possible. I go back to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, is where I'm from, to have chemo. I sit down for my first day of chemo, and this is an important part. I feel like this is kind of a really important part of the story. I'm not a front row and church guy. I believe in God, but I also believe this is kind of like my touch, like somebody was touching me on my shoulder kind of moment. I sit down in the chemo chair, and one of the nurses comes over, and she brings me a backpack. And it was from this organization called I Know Jack. And Jack is a kid who is 5 years old, and Jack got brain cancer. Just out of the blue, spent, over 100 days in the hospital. Had a big chunk of his skull taken out. He coded while he was in the hospital. This kid just went through an absolute war, right? So I get this backpack, and it has all these things in there for cancer patients. It has a blanket, it has a nice water bottle, and there's about 15 different items in it. It's super cool. And I sit down and I'm reading Jack's story, and this family, they just been through the ringer, and Jack's still alive today. Jack's 23. He really his whole mission in life is to fight cancer, and his family's mission is to fight cancer and to help other people. And I just thought it was super cool that I'm sitting there in my first day of cancer, and somebody I've never met, a family I've never met, gives me this. They give me a gift, right? And it's pretty cool, right? And I didn't realize at the time that the cancer family is a great family. It's not a family you want to be in, but it's a pretty dang good bunch of people, right? And the thing that I loved about this story is Jack's family had taken this terrible diagnosis, a 5-year-old kid. I mean, who wants to deal with that, right? And they had really, they got a bunch of lemons and they really made lemonade out of it. And I was just sitting there and I told my wife, I said, why do people run the Boston Marathon for fundraising purposes? I'm like, well, we ought to think about doing that. We could raise a bunch of money. And so we thought about it, and Jack had went to this camp called it's called Children's Cancer Connection. They run a camp for kids that have cancer, right? It's free of charge to every kid that comes out there. It's a really awesome program. Jack started doing it when he was 5, and he went all the way through 18. Gives him an opportunity to talk to other kids that have cancer. It's not like you walk into a locker room or school and everybody has cancer and it's something easy to talk about. So it's a really neat program. And so we kind of put it out there in social media, and the Cancer Center got a hold of it, and some news programs, and the press got a hold of it. And when I ran Boston, I kind of fast forward a little bit. I go through my first 5 rounds of chemo, and I know you talk about a lot, treatments on the show. I didn't have a real good run. My first 4 treatments. I woke up the first night and I felt like I was getting stabbed about 3 a.m, and I literally sweat pouring down my face. I was sitting there over the sink. I had my wife get out of bed. I just told her, hey, I need you to hold your hand, and I'm breathing through this thing. And after about 5 minutes, it was over. And I called the doctor. They give you that 24-hour thing, and he wakes up half asleep, and he says, well, I think you're just anxious over the chemo. And I had a major back injury. That's how I got out of the fire world. I had sliced a nerve in my L5 in my early 20s, and I've had plenty of stitches and sports injuries and stuff. And I said, man, I'm not anxious. This isn't anxiety, right? So lo and behold, we do the next treatment, and it gets a little worse. And they think it's diet. They think that I'm eating too many foods that are gaseous. Well, that wasn't it.
I'm sorry. I try not to interject. I don't want to kill the flow of your story, but if you were totally okay, and then they started putting stuff into the equation, and then you're not okay, why do you think they look at every single other thing before they look at the thing that they put into the equation?
Damn good question.
I don't understand that, but okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't make sense. Like, this is literally practicing medicine.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's even a better question when you find out what it is, right? So the third time, I keep gutting it out, and I'm just like, and they're telling me, they're like, oh, the nurses are telling me, oh, this is just going along with chemo, and and everybody goes through this, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, listen, I'm like, if everybody was going through this, you wouldn't have anybody back there. So finally, I get to the 4th round, and it's these attacks. As you well know, chemo, it keeps going. It gets worse and worse every time, right? And the symptoms get worse and worse every time. And so about 7:00 that night, I started having these attacks, and they're bam, 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 and they're it's just not going away. And my wife's like, we're not dealing this tonight. We're going to the emergency room. We go to the ER. Had a really good ER doc that pretty smart guy, and he said, he ran the numbers, and long story short, my lipase numbers at the time were 1,200. They admit you at 250. I basically had acute pancreatitis from a chemo drug. I was allergic to irinotecan. It's about a 1%, maybe 1/10% side effect that you will get pancreatitis from. They're asking me, are you drinking? And part of my story, I wasn't a big drinker or anything like that. As soon as chemo started, I made the decision that I looked at it just like a marathon. I wasn't going to drink. I was going to eat as healthy as I could. I looked at it as a race. Like, I got to do everything I can do to beat this. And that's how I'm going to treat chemo. Right.
And it is a marathon, not a sprint. It is a marathon.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And my marathon training came in handy. So I spent 4 days in the hospital. When I went in, my blood pressure was 220 over 160. Pretty, have a stroke range. I'm usually like a 120 over 70 guy. So that was really unnerving. They took me off the Arena T-Can, which, was a good thing. But my cousin is a cancer researcher for Genentech, and she's super smart. And she thinks part of the issue was that I have a gene. She kind of looks at my profile that my liver wasn't filtering the chemo. It was kind of holding it. So when they were giving me a normal dose, that I was getting a dose that was like 180% of what a normal person could filter out. So it's interesting. The good news about that is I had super good results, right? So I kind of like I was getting a hot dose. So my chemo results were, when I went in for that first scan for my surgery, were absolutely, phenomenal. I mean, we had killed the colon cancer, the tumor had pretty much gone away. We had a couple of the liver mets had almost gone away, and we only had a couple that were showing up. She thinks that's what happened, and that was, since I wasn't filtering, that's what caused the pancreatitis, which is interesting. So maybe I had a lot of pain, but sometimes you have some pain and it turns out okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can push through it, and I don't know. I mean, so did that resolve itself?
It did, yeah. After I got off the Arena T-Can, I haven't had issues since then. Whenever I've done chemo.
After you did all that chemo and you ended up getting out of the hospital and you figured out what was hurting versus helping, at that point, did you get a scan at some point in time? Did you get like some sort of a status check, whether it was a CEA marker or a Signatera test or something, to give you like a base of where you were at in your battle?
Interesting enough, my Signatera for the first year was always negative. So I go back to Mayo in April of 2022. Signatera was negative at that time. No issues there. I get my scans, and they green light me to have surgery. And big win. You got to get off. You got to get off the blood thinners as part of your chemo to be able to do surgery, right? So they wanted to do surgery May 5th. I got a 3-week break in chemo where I was able to go run the Boston Marathon. And we ended up raising $12,000 for that. I know Jack and the Children's Cancer Connection. So we raised a ton of money. And one of the really cool things in my journey is I wasn't like I've never done any fundraising or anything like that. If you had a great cause, I'd write you a check, but it wasn't my love language just to go out and to raise money. It just wasn't something I did. And what I learned with this was it was really cool to kind of go out and help people. Right. So we came up and I said, I want to keep doing this. I'd like to do something, kind of on our own. And my wife and I came up with our foundation. It's called Tell 5 Friends. And this will make sense to you. The whole idea of Tell 5 Friends was people kept asking me, they kept saying, hey, is there anything that I could do for you? What can I do for you? Right. And you kind of almost get a little bit sick of answering that question. We are very lucky. I have a great job. I have a great boss. We have great insurance. I didn't have to worry about that side of it, which I know probably people listening, there's plenty of people that I talk to. There's a lot of burden that goes with it. That's brutal. Right. So we wanted to have an answer to that question. And what we came up with was, we didn't want what happened to me. If somebody doesn't go in and get their colonoscopy and then they just wake up one day and it's stage 4 and there's nothing they can do about it, and if you get colon cancer and you catch it really early, you get your colonoscopy, it's really survivable in stage 1 and stage 2, and even at some points stage 3, right? So our thought was, you get to our age.
It's a stage 4 category that really kind of gets you. So it's hard to turn the head when it starts spreading around.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So the early detection is a big deal. But just like you, when I got diagnosed, I think they just changed it to 45. And I was just turning 46, and they had just changed it from 50 to 45. 2-3 weeks before I got diagnosed. And they're like, oh, yeah, you didn't hear? I'm like, well, why would I have heard that? Why would I mean? Was there a big marketing thing going on? Did you run commercials or something? No, you just willy nilly change it in the shadows of the internet somewhere, and then all of a sudden I'm supposed to know? No, I mean you only know what you were brought up with or whatever, and so when there's a change, they should probably broadcast it somehow. I don't know.
Bringing that up, it's amazing how many nurses and doctors I've talked to that, when I was diagnosed, very really close to you, because I mean, it only been 3 months since they changed it to me. We're in the same window, right? How many doctors and nurses didn't even know they made the change?
Yeah, no, and then there were some that knew, and they were very condescending about, like, well, why wouldn't you have known this? And then there was other doctors that literally were also in the oncology, whether then they might not have been medical oncologists, they were surgical oncologists or whatever, but they were like, well, I really didn't know myself. So I was like, well, but then some doctors are a little bit condescending. They're like, well, how could you not know? It's incumbent upon you to be the. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in that line of work. I fish. It's what I do. So yeah. So I mean, I just wasn't. I didn't get the memo, I guess.
So yeah, credit to my doctor. Thank God that she knew, right? She's on top of it. And so what we came up with was, you get to our age, and you could probably count your best friends on your hand, right? You got your circle of 5 people, and our thought was, we wanted people to take my story and go out and tell their 5 friends. And our whole goal of that was, take my story, and here I am in great health. I was the last person any of my friends ever expected to get cancer, and inspire people to get their colonoscopy. And our whole goal with that was to be able to save one life. And so we put together a foundation, did all the 501(c)(3)s, and now we've raised a lot of money. We had a golf tournament. We actually put a really cool ad up in our airport. I've done a bunch of press, and we try to spread the message on podcasts like this and other podcasts. And we have had 5 people now that have told us that they've gotten diagnosed with cancer, with colon cancer, because they went in and got a colonoscopy as a result of our efforts. I had a friend that's had 2 people that she knows, that she's talked to, that have came back with colon cancer, and probably over 100 people that have had precancerous polyps. And it's just a passion of ours that we don't want other people to go through this. And if our story can motivate and inspire people to just go in and get a colonoscopy. And we try to talk to people about different preps. I don't know if you had to do the jug, that's not a whole lot of fun, but there's some great options out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can do clean pick, where it's easy. Or my wife did pills, and doctor, like you said.
Oh, actually, hold on a second. Hold that thought. I have one coming up. I have a colonoscopy coming up. Gosh, it's got to be in a couple months, I think. I have one coming up because they told me about it in my last appointment, and so I have a scan. And actually, I go next week. I have an appointment at Moffitt for radiation, my annual radiation, and then the following week I have another scan. So I'm going to be going back and forth a couple times in the next couple weeks, and that was one of the things that we were talking about with Signatera, and I got to kind of get a bunch of stuff done because it's that time of year,
Sure.
Annual. Yeah. So, but hey, the tell 5 friends thing, that's a 501(c)(3).
Yep.
And what is it? So people donate to it, and the proceeds go where?
Yeah. So we do 2 things. Our goal is to raise awareness about colonoscopies. So like we do an ad, we have a really nice ad at the airport. It's got 6 colon cancer survivor or 6 colon cancer patients on it. It says, this is the face of colon cancer. Everybody on this ad, there's 6 of us. I was the oldest person when diagnosed at 46, and we got a 27-year-old. We have a 27-year-old woman. We have a 39-year-old woman who was actually one of my really good friends' wives, who had symptoms for 2 years and ended up getting diagnosed 3 months after me because she finally went in to get a colonoscopy. And she's stage 4 now. We have there's out of the 6 people, there's 4 of us are stage 4. And out of that stage 4 group, 3 of us did not have any symptoms. And so we have this nice picture, and we want people to be able to see, hey, this is real, right? Everyone talks about breast cancer. People don't talk about colon cancer enough. It's kind of like hidden away. It's like, oh man, they stick this thing up your butt, and it's just something people don't want to talk about, right? So I try to get out and just say, hey, I didn't do anything wrong to get cancer. It happens. But if I don't talk to people about why it's important to get a colonoscopy, I'm missing maybe the point of this message, or maybe why I got this, and how I can help other people. So we try to make a positive out of it for sure.
You had mentioned earlier about Jack. When you first got diagnosed and he was a kid, that his family, him and his family, they had gifted you this backpack, and you seemed a little bit puzzled by it. Are you still puzzled by that? The gift?
That's a great question. I'm not, because I've seen so many great people in the cancer community. And, the best way I heard it described was, even if you get out and you're in remission, or that you've made it out of the really tough times, right? Somebody described it as, well, just because, if you're in a house that's on fire and you get out to the front lawn, there still could be people that are in that house, and nobody in their right mind wouldn't do anything to go help those people, right? And I think people, like yourself, when we talked before we started doing this, people know how hard it is to fight cancer, and it's just a brutal thing. And the last thing you want to help those people that are still going through it, and are still in the bad part. You want to do everything you can for them, right?
I'm not going to let you burn, brother. I will not let you burn. It's no man left behind.
Yep, absolutely.
So you go, I go. This is your battle, is my battle. I mean, this is something that we've built a community here. With Beating Cancer Today, there's a community of people, and it was so organic. Like my initial thought was, okay, we'll get a few people together, and we'll talk about this stuff, and after a while it fades or whatever. And but it didn't. It grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it kept growing. And then the people that were helping it grow started participating, and then there were doctors participating, and then there was lawyers participating, and then IT people participating, and everybody has been touched by cancer in some sort of way, and they're all paying it forward.
Yeah.
And this is the community that we've built. This was the most organic thing that I've ever done. It was like I made a little noise. I made a squeak, and with that squeak, the trickle effect, the ripple effect that squeak was, I mean, it has amplified and magnified globally. And now all these people are supporting it and sharing it and doing everything that I never thought. And really, if you aren't going to build back a better version of the person who got sick, what the hell did you fight for? What, to just become the same person who got sick? I mean, it's incumbent upon you and me and everybody who gets sick to build back a better version of the person who got sick. And I think Jack and his family probably have recognized that. And I think that, in church, they say, I think in the Bible, there's actually some information about tithing in the Bible. They discuss tithing and the benefits of that. And I think in church commonly, right, they pass the plate and they talk about giving, but they also talk about giving for the purpose of the church as a bigger, larger entity to be giving, right? So they would give to villages, or they would give to communities, or they would give to homeless. They would give to larger, So anyway, through giving, I think there becomes gratitude. And once you could find gratitude, That's the only way to sustain happiness.
Yeah.
And I honestly do feel like without gratitude, you'll never sustain happiness. And I didn't know when I got sick, I had no idea how much of a miserable prick I was. I just didn't know. I didn't know. And when I started to learn how to be grateful for things, and I learned what gratitude was, it was only then that I stopped wanting to try to keep up with the Joneses or wanted more materialistic stuff or whatever the case was. It was only at that point where I could really identify what happiness was really about. I had no idea. My entire adult life, I had no idea. Nor did I have any idea that politics had such a hand in medicine. Nor did I have any idea that money was the root of all evil and they control big pharma. And this is what I mean, blah, 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 all of the conspiracy. I didn't know any of it. I literally went through life with my head in the sand. Right? I mean, it's not what the conversation is about, but what I'm saying is my entire adult life, I was a sheep. I just kind of blindly followed stuff, and there's no room to find gratitude in that. I just don't think that when you're constantly grinding or you're constantly chasing something, there's just no time. There's no, you don't have the ability to find gratitude, you're just occupied by other things, but I think Jack's family found gratitude, and they found that through giving. And it's just, it's kind of like you had talked about the things that you are doing now to pay back to the community and to pay it forward to future people that get sick, and you're still going through it. You don't make money. You don't do. I mean, this is something a passion of yours.
At Christmas, we gave $5,000 in gift cards to colon cancer patients. We went through both of our local cancer centers, and we identified 4 families that were at need. We gave $500 gift cards to all of them, and then we ended up giving $50 to every cancer patient. Because as you well know, Christmas is not an easy time to be sitting in the chair, right? I mean, so we wanted to do, and we will always do that. I have a pizza party for my chemo nurses every year, and I told them every year I'm alive, I'm going to be back there. And I think, you brought up something really interesting. I think the greatest part about cancer is that it gives you perspective, right? I mean, it's a gift. It's an absolute gift of perspective. I was like you, I ran really hot. I was going through life. I was on a mission. I was, I had stuff to do, right? If you gave me a rating for empathy, like 1 to 10, I was probably like a 1 to 2, right? I mean, I wasn't real good at empathy. It was like, if you're out of shape, well, what are you doing? I mean, go to the gym. If you're not, I didn't. Yeah, if you smoked, I mean, what's your problem? If you're an alcoholic, what's your stop drinking? I just wasn't. I didn't take into that account. And now that I had cancer, I look at everybody's got a story. And people even still look at me, and I'll meet people. I played pickleball with these guys for, I don't know, months. I played pickleball on Thursday night, and last night.
Listen, no judgment here, man. I'm not judging anybody. Yeah. So go ahead, say it out loud. That's all. Everybody's watching pickleball, huh?
I got blood on the ball, and one of the guys says to me, I go, oh, don't worry about it, man. My blood gets tested all the time. I'm fine. And he's like, and he asked me, he goes, well, why does your blood get tested? And I'm like, well, I have stage 4 cancer, and he's like, and the 3 guys there, and 2 of them, they're like, really? Are you serious? So I'm like, yeah, I showed him my scar. I'm like, yeah, I do. It's a real thing, right? So I always, I think to myself, people don't even know that I'm going through that, and people are doing battles with things all the time, and just, you can look at them and that doesn't mean anything, So cancer's taught me to be a lot more empathetic. So I sympathize exactly with what you're saying. And I mean, cancer sucks, but there's some real gifts. And I think the gift of perspective is one of the huge gifts of cancer. I mean, and that's been a big part for me. I mean, if you ask me this, Kevin, we've between the marathons that I've run, and I've ran I've ran Chicago and New York since I've been sick, and the money we raised for Tell Five Friends, we've raised over $66,000. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I never raised more than $500 in my life.
That is incredible, right? But you know what? It's a little bit scary because you're raising that kind of money because people know the desperation. People know that 1,700 people a day die in this country from cancer. People know that. I mean, people know that, and that's why they have no problems, no qualms at all about peeling off a couple bills for you, because people are hurting, people are sick, and they're in need. And I question as to whether if it's all really necessary, because I feel like there are solutions out there, but without changing the narrative, you'll never be able to explore some of those options. The 501c3, when people donate to it or whatever, do you ever hold any annual things or something where people could get together to celebrate the cause of what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, we had our first golf tournament in August, and we're going to do that every year.
What is it? A golf tournament, you said?
Yeah, we had a golf tournament.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we had a little banquet kind of dinner afterwards. And we had a I didn't want to. Everybody's hopefully heard my story, so we had somebody come that had colon cancer and talk about their story. Both I go to one cancer center, but I also do I do work with another cancer center. So both of them came. We have full tables, and we had I think we had about 140 people there. And, went great. Everybody had a great time, and that'll be kind of our annual thing that we're going to do to bring everyone together. We've only been doing it for a year, and as you well know, I mean, we started this foundation while I had cancer, so
wow,
it kind of grew on its own, right? So
this was your distraction, actually.
Yeah, right. I mean,
everybody should have a distraction. I built a house. That was my distraction. I was like my owner builder. I was my own GC, and I never built a house before. All right. So it was an education for me, but that was my distraction. I was going through chemo and everything. Oh my God, I fired like 100 different contractors because I was moody and everything. Like, they were all doing a great job, but I'd come out, oh, you're all fired, because I was so sick, but that was my distraction though, Yeah. But you had mentioned, wow, you started this and you were going through the grind, which is hard because how are you the face of something when you're so sick? So that's a tough one. But I wanted to kind of circle back just for a second.
Sure.
About, you said something earlier about perspective, and the perspective. It's funny because I was listening to you talk and everything, and last night I was talking to my wife, and we were talking about our plans for the day and what we're going to do over the weekend and stuff. And I said, I got to mow the lawn, and she says, well, do you have to, the grass isn't really growing. I said, no, I don't have to, I get to. And she says, well, what do you mean? Oh, is that one of your things? That's what I get. Is that one of your things? I don't need a podcast, Kevin. Come on. But no, I don't have to mow the lawn. I get to mow the lawn. I'm not even supposed to be alive. This was my opportunity to mow the lawn. Like, yeah. So you mean I'm gonna get to do this stuff for a while? Yeah. Because I remember when I just wanted to walk to the bathroom. That's all I wanted to do, is get to the bathroom without falling down or being too late. And I think that it's I think it's incumbent upon all of us to not forget, and honestly, if I'm being completely transparent, I do this podcast. I run this Beating Cancer Today. I'm terrified of becoming the old Kevin again. I feel like if I do this, because what I won't do is be a hypocrite. And if I do this and I'm talking to you about something and I'm preaching one way, I practice what I preach. I won't be a hypocrite. And that holds me accountable. it's my way of being disciplined, I guess you could say. You know,
Sure.
and it holds my feet to the fire. So, you know, to me, I do have a selfish angle, right? Like yes, I want to do this to help so many other people, but I'm also self-serving because I know that if I am not accountable to something, I won't practice it. You know, I mean, I just, you know, I said I limited my cocktail to 5 ingredients because if there's 10 ingredients, I go wacko. I go nuts. I won't follow it. I'll lose track and shit. Without my wife, I'm really a complete soup sandwich. Like I really am. Like I'm a puddle, right? And I think that it's important to have like a really good support system. You had mentioned 5 people, you know, at this age in your life, you know, that you have your group of people. You know, what about your support system when you're going? Well, you're still going through it. Do you continuously call on people?
I have an unbelievable support system. People, I've lived a lot of places. The people in Iowa are just tremendous people. And you know, my support system is just awesome. I never had to worry about anything. I mean, they supported when I was, you know, running marathons and doing all this stuff, and they supported me financially in terms of fundraising. You know, people brought food and you know, that people, anything that I want to do, people have just backed me, you know, I mean, just wonderful. And, you know, I try to pay that forward, right? You know, I mean, as I'm sure you well know, I have a lot of friends that I know. I have a really good friend right now, is an awesome lady, and she's fighting breast cancer and she's fighting her ass off, but it's ugly, man. It's really ugly. You know, it's stage 4 and it's weird. You start having people that come into your life that all of a sudden have stage 4 cancer, and it's like, wow, there's a lot more than you thought, right? You know, and some days you realize really how lucky you are compared to somebody else, right? And I mean, I had people that mentored me throughout this process, and I mentored people through it, because it's nice to have somebody to be able to talk to about, right? You and we both know oxyplatin sucks, right? I mean,
Irinotecan and
right.
Oxycontin. Yeah.
But we could talk the same drugs, you know. I mean, you know, oxyplatin. I mean, I remember I had a buddy who was a stage 3 patient, and he said he's in remission now, and he said, "Hey, just wait till the first time you go to the grocery and you stick your hand in the freezer section." And I
Oh,
thought, I'm like, "Oh, what is he talking about?" Right? You know, and he's like,
drink
"Take
cold
the
water.
gloves."
Drink something cold.
Oh yeah, right. I mean,
Oh,
I love ice cream. You know, for months, for a whole year, I couldn't eat ice cream, and I would go to when I go to Mayo, there was this ice cream shop, and I
oh,
I would,
razor blades going down your throat.
yeah, it's terrible. And I would just like take a little bit, like, well, I can't have it now. And then, you know, I haven't had chemo in a year, thankfully. And every time I go up for scans, I go to that ice cream shop. I mean, without fail, I am there, right? There's no way that I'm going to avoid it. But yeah, my support system has been absolutely wonderful to me. I mean, I've had friends take me to ER in the middle of the night. You know, my wife has to work the next day or something going on. You know, people come and visit me in the hospital. They've been wonderful. And um, I I've I heard on another podcast, and it was one of those kind of guru guys, you know, like us, and he said, you know, that basically, you know, when you're feeling helpless, to be helpful. And I didn't, I had heard that after, you know, I had started doing this, but there's a lot to that, right? You know, you're feeling like everything's going wrong, but if you go out and you help other people, I don't worry about cancer, or I don't think about it, right? I'm focused on the mission to go to go help people, make sure they get a colonoscopy, that they hear my story, or, you know, that we're helping other cancer patients, right? And then I don't sit around and worry about, am I sick, or are the next scans going to be bad, or I'm going to have some more meds, or I'm going to have some more surgeries.
Phil, you know, we talked a lot about preventative stuff and everything, but you're clearly thriving right now. You look great and everything, but we haven't talked about, we did the preventative stuff, but not what you're currently doing to look as good as you look. I mean, you were in shape before you got sick. And, you know, in the our last show, I think it was Fitz had said that, you know, being in shape going into the battle is certainly an advantage, right? But
Sure.
now, did you do anything to to double down on that, or tweak it, or just throttle up, like just get even stricter or more of a specific lifestyle?
Yeah, I definitely did. I, as soon as I started chemo, I haven't had a drink of alcohol, and I didn't drink that much, but I haven't had a drink in 26 months. I cut out all processed meats. I had no idea that processed meats or red meat in a lot of ways causes colon cancer. I had no idea. I did 2015. They came out, World Health Organization, whatever, the WHO said that processed meats are a class 1 carcinogen. You don't go into a sub store and they don't put that on the front door like they would for
processed meats. Processed meat's not a steak, though. That's
no, right.
that's not processed meat. So, I mean, because like there's carnivore diets. Just like I've done all those diets and everything. So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing now to look the way you look and to thrive the way you're thriving? I mean, this is incredible. What are you doing personally?
Yeah, I run 4 days a week, at least. Anywhere from, depending on if I'm going to a race, I'll run 40 to 50 miles if I'm doing a marathon. But right now, currently, so just give you an idea this week, I'll run 30 miles. I play pickleball 2 nights a week.
What are you doing? You said you're off of chemo for a while.
Yeah.
What kind of treatment are you doing?
I'm not only treatment right now. I had an ablation surgery in September, and they just had me on monitoring. So
So currently, you are no evidence of disease?
No, I am not, because
I
got a PET test. Yeah, I have a PET MRI that I had in January after my ablation surgery, and it lit up. But they're monitoring it because they haven't decided yet if it's inflammation from the ablation surgery that I originally had, or if it's still something that's kind of floating around there. Okay. But it's right in the same area. So the surgeon and my oncologist both feel like it's inflammation. So but I'm gonna have to get a couple scans out for them to feel really good about that.
With the window of energy that you have, because you're not in any treatment, with that window of energy comes opportunity. And you're certainly capitalizing on the opportunity. You're running marathons, you're exercising, your diet's dialed in. Everything that you're doing is right. So when is the next unit of measurement? Do you have a Signatera or CEA markers or a scan coming up or anything like that?
Yeah, March 27th. And I forgot to add too. Yes, what would you do? I lift probably 4 days a week.
Okay.
I don't know what's coming, but I know the likelihood that I might have to get in the ring with cancer again is pretty high. So I want to be ready. I want to be ready when that day comes. Man. And I think that people take, your health is your wealth. And I think sometimes we take that for granted. And
I hear all the time people tell me, oh, well, at least you're no evidence of disease. And at least you have already gone through, you're good now. No, the doctors tell me that I am in a category of less than 1% of the people with my disease that it hasn't reoccurred on yet. I wake up every day and I put the work in. Every single day I get up and I put the work in. I started this initiation, this challenge that I call it is a proof of life challenge. And every morning I wake up and I send my buddy who's in my support system, right? He's in my support group. My circle. That's what I should have said. I don't go to a support group, but he's in my circle of friends, right? So I every morning I'm on the treadmill or I'm stretching or I'm doing something to show that I'm going to make the best of the day, whether it's eating breakfast, cooking, making coffee, or whatever it is. I do something. I shed him a 5-second video just showing proof of life. I'm out of bed and I'm working. We're grinding. We're doing something today to go in the right direction. Yeah. And that's my proof of life challenge. And now people are doing it all over the place. I get it, at least locally, they're appeasing me and doing it. But no, I mean, I think it's a great idea because the whole time I was sick, every morning I couldn't get up. I didn't have it. I didn't have it in me. And this guy would do it to me. Every morning he'd call me. Like, you set your watch by every morning. Hey, get up. Let's go. It's time. Let's go. Get up. Motion creates emotion. So I think everybody needs that. What is your advice to others? If you could be profound, and if you can tell somebody, like, from your heart, really, what could you say to other people to encourage them to make changes, to live this lifestyle that you're living? I mean, you look great.
I would say that you have to look at it as every day matters. Every single day that you get on this earth matters. When I go to bed at night, I am thankful for the day that I got. And when I wake up that next day, I am not going to waste a day. I'm not going to just go through that day and have it be meaningless. The way I look at it is, I am going to get better as a person. I'm going to get smarter, whether I learn about something new, whether I learn about, a new cancer treatment or a business, anything like that. And I'm going to get fitter. And if I can do those three things in a day, I'm going to be that much better when I go into the next day. But the last thing I'm going to do, and I think the biggest thing that people make the mistake of, is they take life for granted. And when you get a diagnosis like we've gotten, there's nothing to be taken for granted. You get to go mow the lawn. It's a privilege. I get to go see, my kids, my kids dance or do the things they do. That's a privilege. If I get to hang out with my friends for 30 minutes and have a conversation with them, that's a privilege. That all the little things mean something. And the biggest thing people need to stop doing is, and I don't want to preach to them, but the biggest thing people need to realize is that, you can't get back what you didn't do today. Do it today. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to go take this trip in 5 years. Do it today. Or don't say, I'm going to get back in shape now. Do it today. You got to do it today. Stop thinking that you can do it in a week. Get up that day and go do it.
Never buy back time. You'll never be able to buy back time. And tomorrow is already gone. Tomorrow is already yesterday, and you will never buy that time back. So brother, listen, I am so excited that you were able to take the time to talk to us. And I think that your story is applicable and certainly relative to the cause that we got going on. I'm hoping that people share this video and it reaches the person that it needs to reach, or the people that it needs to reach, because somebody's going through it right now. Somebody's going through it right now with this is a small community, and everybody, has somebody in their life that's been touched by cancer. All right. Hey, we're going to go ahead and close off. I'll sign out, and listen, everybody, share these videos, subscribe, make sure that you talk about it. Let's grow this audience, grow the conversation so we can reach the people that it needs to reach. And thank you for tuning in to A Warrior Wednesday. We'll be back. See you next week. Thank you for joining me again on this episode of Beating Cancer Today. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Whether you're battling cancer or supporting a loved one, there's always hope and help available. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories, practical tips, and empowering conversations. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay strong, stay positive, keep fighting, and be vigilant. Take care. Remember, we're in this together.